Hi, I'm Dan Green, the Director of Bridges for Communities, and I would like to just share a few thoughts on the topic of cultural awareness. This is a topic that is really important to us at Bridges because of the work that we do to connect people of different cultures and faiths, and especially in the work that we do to help welcome people who are new to the UK coming from other countries. I don't know if you've ever thought about what cultural awareness is or what culture is. But a couple of quick thoughts to share on that. The first one is to think of culture like an umbrella because it contains many different thoughts and meanings. It covers everything from practices, traditions, beliefs, rules, customs, values. All of those things get kind of lumped under this umbrella of culture. So a definition that may be helpful is to see culture as a shared pattern of preferred values, beliefs, attitudes, assumptions, behaviors that define the way of life of a group. It's always about a group of people, it's not about individuals, and it's kind of agreed or shared or constructed by that group of people. So that explains why you hear culture pop up in different ways, in different contexts, or in different sentences. I'll share a few sentences that I've heard recently including that term culture, and it may just help kind of register that thought. So if I said I go to France every summer because I just love French culture, I'm probably talking about food and wine and maybe music, that kind of thing that I might experience on my holiday. But if I said that we don't have siestas because it's not really part of British culture, I'm probably talking about a practice or a behavior or a norm. And so on and so forth. As you look at the other examples, you can see that term culture being used to cover a whole range of different things. So think of it as an umbrella, and maybe a simpler definition is the way we do things around here. The way we do things around here. So again, it's something that we kind of agree together, but probably subconsciously or an unspoken way that becomes the way that we do things or the way that we expect things to be done. Where do we get our culture from? What are our cultural influences? There's all kinds of different things, but it could be the country you're from or the region that you're part of in that country. It could be what generation you're part of, what media you look at or read or listen to, how your parents brought you up, what your religious background is. All of those things form the way that we see our own culture. A second way of seeing culture that's quite a common picture used for it is that of an iceberg, where there are things that are above the surface that are really easy to discover, that you might find out in a week's holiday in Italy, for example. You would see some of the very obvious differences around language, around clothing, around food, etc. But what you might not see in a week's visit are the deeper things, the things around values, around assumptions, around attitudes, or beliefs. Those are the things which make up deep culture and which it takes a bit more time to kind of discover. So just a couple of tips as you seek to grow in your cultural awareness as a volunteer or whatever your role is. The first one is to remember that what's normal for you is not necessarily normal for everyone else. You just be aware that all of us are wearing our own cultural lenses. We're seeing the world through the lens of our culture. And that's because culture is really a matter of perception. And this means that we might be looking at the same thing, but seeing things quite differently because of all of those influences and experiences that we've had that shape how we see the world. So I really like that picture of two people arguing about whether the number on the ground is a 6 or a 9, because for one of them, it really is a 6. They really see it or experience it as a 6. Whereas for the other person, they really see it or experience it as a 9. So keep in mind that the lenses that we look at the world through have a big impact on how we experience it. And then the second one is just to try to understand why people may think or act differently to you. And try not to jump to conclusions or make judgments. When you experience a cultural difference, whatever that is, try not to kind of wade in with a judgment or see it as right or wrong, but try and understand maybe what is the thought or what is the intention or what is the value that's at work behind that. So cultural differences may appear in all kinds of different ways in the relationships and in the role that you have. It could be social norms, like what is expected in certain situations, maybe what time you should arrive for a meeting, etc. It could be around communication style and how you make requests, or how direct or indirect you can be with someone. It could be unspoken expectations, things that maybe you just think people should or shouldn't do, like queuing, or like tipping in a restaurant, or like how you are a neighbor to somebody. A lot of those things are unspoken, but can easily be kind of assumed or expected. And then the last area is around values or preferences, where we may just put a different value or a different weight on certain things. So again, just trying not to jump to judgment or conclusion about them, but to think about where they're coming from and what's behind them. Another tip is just to remember that growing in cultural awareness is a two-way process. It's a two-way street. It's not just those who are new to this country or new to this culture who have to adjust. All of us are adjusting to each other. And I think this is really an opportunity for all of us to be learning, to be seeking to grow over time, and seeing it as a lifelong journey of growing in cultural awareness of one another and learning to live well with difference. And then the final thing is, if you get it wrong, if you make a mistake, don't worry too much about it. Be willing to laugh at yourself, and just try and communicate as well as you can about that. So those are a few thoughts. I hope they're helpful, and thank you for being part of this and for seeking to grow in your own cultural awareness.